Hey everybody, we had a few technical difficulties on our end. We actually were in another webinar that actually runs tomorrow regarding LinkedIn. We were on the wrong link, and now we're just now coming into this webinar. So give us just a second here. It's a little after 2 o'clock. I apologize for the delayed start on this. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get on here. I also know how the mortgage business is, and you recruiting leaders, as I like to call you, have the rotating door. So I'll give you a second to maybe get people out of your office, turn off your email, turn the ringer off your phone, whatever it is that you want to do, and we'll get started here in about 60 seconds. I won't be live myself during the actual presentation. I can be a little animated with my hands and stuff at times. I don't want to be a distraction. So after this, you're going to just see a 4C recruiting screen come up, and we will get the presentation started here in just about half a minute, okay? Be back with you in about 30 seconds. Will somebody jump in the chat box and just let me know you can actually see my screen here? I want to make sure that you can see the Recruiting Made Simple statement across the top, and then the 4C Recruiting logo. And if someone will confirm that for me, then we will we'll get jump started here. Perfect. Thanks so much. Okay, we'll get started here. A little bit about myself. You see the Recruiting Made Simple logo across the top of this, across the top of the screen. That actually has been about a 15-year vision for me to get to a place where I actually believed that recruiting wasn't complicated. I spent the first 12, 13 years of my mortgage career, and I'll share a little bit with you about that, where I was actually in a similar role as most of you on this meeting today and this webinar today, where I was building branches, growing branches, being a producing branch manager, and eventually as a regional manager, vice president. And for the majority of that season, I would say, you know, out of the almost 15 years, 12, 13 years of that, I really struggled with recruiting. Now, I managed through it, but it was difficult for me. And so it's very easy for me to put myself in your role, in your position, which is, in my opinion, the most difficult one the industry has. And to go, recruiting is hard. So I want to break this down for you. This is really going to be my journey of going through this season where recruiting was very difficult, was very hard, and getting to a place where recruiting was the zone. It was my lane that I could be in, but it wasn't always that way. So I love using that statement, recruiting made simple, or recruiting is simple, because it's counterintuitive to what the industry believes as a whole. And the truth is that as a recruiting leader, you are not a corporate recruiter. You sit in a completely different role. And so the dynamics of your position are unique. You can't sit alongside a corporate recruiter and model what they're doing because it just won't work. The dynamics are you're in a local market, or you may be in a regional market where you're going to run into other leaders that are in a similar role as you, or other leaders that have a group of people underneath them that they're working to retain and build relationship with. And so you coming in and how you recruit, it just has to be different. That's the truth. Because you can throw, you know, flames across every bridge that you have in the market and have difficulties walking into network events, have difficulties engaging people in conversations, and really put up a barrier, put up a wall that will prevent you from having success in your market. So I have so much respect for you, having been in your role in your shoes, knowing how difficult recruiting is. So I want to break this down for you and really help you understand how recruiting can be easy. What you can expect after you're done here today is to actually understand how to build a unique recruiting model that is your model. Nobody else can duplicate it. It's something that's unique to you, because we're going to talk about vision, authentic leadership, vision casting, and how to actually incorporate that into your recruiting. So when we're done here today, you will understand how to lead this and go to your own unique recruiting system. So I want to show you how to create a personal, unique recruiting system. I want to show you what it takes to be an expert recruiter in your market. And I also know that time is so, it is impossible. It seems almost impossible wearing 12 to 15 hats every single day to then also put on that hat and to wear that hat of a recruiting leader. You know, having been in your role, I know that some of the hats you wear, you're responsible for production growth, which means that you're responsible for ensuring that your production, your team's production grows year over year. You're typically the pipeline manager. You make sure that all the loans are on track to closing. You're the head firefighter. If there's an underwriting issue or a closing issue, you're responsible for handling that. You're probably the HR liaison. You're the IT liaison. You're the office manager. You're the deal putter togetherer. I don't know if that's a word or not, but you are that person that people come to typically that asks the question of, how do I structure this deal? I can't get DU to work. Should I use LP? I mean, those are a lot of the things that you're getting. You set a weekly meeting probably. You hold monthly meetings. You're responsible for having annual meetings. You got the end of the year coming up. And you're probably thinking goal setting and how do I get my team in alignment with goals, or how do I help them set goals? The list goes on and on and on. So what happens in this industry? I mean, this industry is unique. The mortgage business is very unique in this aspect. That leader who wears all of those hats is now also responsible for being what we call an expert recruiter. Now go build your branch. Go build your area. Go build your region. Go build whatever it is that's underneath your leadership, and then wear all these other hats. So I want to show you how to do this in about 15 minutes a day so that it is something that you will do. It has to be sustainable. I want you to stay to the end. Here's why. I'm going to purposely bribe you to stay to the end. I'm going to give you my best recruiting tip, the one thing that I did that's a simple little tactic that changed the game for me in recruiting. I'm going to give you a lot of content here, but there's one little thing that each one of you can do immediately in your face-to-face meetings or in your phone meetings that you're having with recruits. I'm bribing you to stay to the end because I know that distractions are going to come up. So again, remove yourself from Facebook, LinkedIn, put a sign on your door, whatever you have to do. A lot of content coming at you fast. A little bit about me. So as I said already, been in the business, was a producing branch manager. Normal month for me was 25 to 30 units. I did that and grew 3 branches and then built to 5 branches. And at 5 branches, I said, I'm going to leave the production behind. I handed that production off and then moved into the role of area, regional, and vice president. So I did that inside the mortgage industry for almost 15 years. And in that season, I built over 20 branches. Now, the truth is that in about an 18 to 20 month window, I built the majority of those branches. So I struggled for a long season to be successful. I was pretty committed to it because that's just who I am. Very goal-oriented, very driven. And so I was successful, but on a much smaller scale than I was the last few years that I was in the business. And so built over 20 branches, hired over 120 loan officers in those branches. And then in 2014, it was really when everything changed for me. I went off the grid for about a full week, turned off my email, got away from my team, and just decided I'm going to become a better recruiter. I'm going to build a system around it. And then in 2014, I built the Recruiting Made Simple system, which is part of what I'm going to show you here today. And that system then allowed me to launch over 7 branches in the next 14 months. 4 of those branches would come in back-to-back months. And then today what I do is I specialize in helping recruiting leaders like yourself and small to medium-sized mortgage companies build recruiting models and achieve high growth. So in all of that, I've done a lot of things right, but I also want to bring up the fact that I've done a lot of things wrong. You can't butt your head up against a brick wall for over a decade and not have done a lot of things wrong. And the reason why I want to make this statement and why I want to actually take a moment and just recognize this is that a lot of people, a lot of what I call recruiting leaders, it's a branch manager, a sales manager, an area manager, a regional manager, a vice president. You may have, in a study that I've done, there's over 200 titles for people in those roles within this business. You may have a different title but hold the same responsibility. When I talk to them, I hear consistently this statement: I'm a horrible recruiter. I'm a bad recruiter. I'm just not good at recruiting. Those are the statements that I hear again and again and again. So I want to break this down and go, Richard Milligan is not a special breed that's really, really, really good and just was born to be a recruiter. That's just not true. So I think recruiting is something that can be taught. It is not a skill set that you are born with. Just like you can be a bad leader and a great leader, you can be a bad recruiter and a great recruiter, but that's a skill set that you grow into. I kind of liken it to being a parent. I have 4 kids now. My oldest is 15, my youngest is 4, and I promise you that with 4 kids, that 4-year-old that's now in my house, I'm a better parent. That kid has more opportunity to be successful because I've just had 3 kids in front of her. And so you just don't know what you don't know. As a parent, that's true. As a recruiting leader, that's true. And so it isn't that you can't. The truth is that you are not equipped. And the thing that probably bothers me most, the reason why I've taken the leap in the past 12 to 18 months to come to a place where I'm on a webinar with you, sharing my vision, sharing the things that I've done, is that this business, the mortgage industry as a whole, does not equip our recruiting leaders to be great recruiters. That's just the truth. So the truth is that most of you on here, and I would dare say all of you on here, are just not equipped to be great recruiters. You'll work through it. You'll do what you need to do to be successful, but you will not ultimately land on the largest stage of success because there's things that you're missing, okay? So here's the hard way. These are some of the things that I did, the things that I did wrong. I called recruits over and over again. I'm talking about cold calling recruits, and I hated it. If there's anything that's typically true about great leaders is that their emotional intelligence is very high. They love their people. They don't like harassing people over the phone in a cold calling environment. It's just not something they enjoy. Now, they may do it because they want to be successful. One of the things that I did that in hindsight I look at and go, that was the wrong way, was I cold call recruits over and over again. And we'll talk about that in a second. You should never make a cold call to a recruit, never, and I'll tell you how to not do that in a few minutes. At one point, I hired a third-party recruiter, and I spent almost $40,000 on a third-party recruiter. This was over the course of 9 months. Had this epiphany, brilliant idea. I'm going to hire a third-party recruiter. I'm going to train them to come in and understand what my vision is, what I'm all about, and then they're going to set up phone calls for me, and I'm going to knock them down, and we're going to have a lot of success doing that. And the truth is that over 9 months, I didn't hire a single individual, and finally cut my losses at the end of 9 months after spending $40,000. That was a hard lesson to learn. What I realized is that in this business, after 15 years, is that external and internal recruiters. Okay, that's my next bullet point. If you have an internal recruiter and you're thinking to yourself right now, I'm okay, I'm only here to get a few nuggets of wisdom because I've got an internal recruiter that's working for me. In my research, and this is well over 100 branch managers, regional managers, area managers that I've done this study with, it's less than 10% are going to, of the external and internal recruiters, are going to make a hire for you as a recruiting leader. Now, they account for a lot more of those hires in this industry as a whole, but they're working for the corporate mortgage company. They're bringing branches to them. They're bringing leaders to them. Those recruiters do really well working for your company president, for your head of sales. But what is typical of a branch manager, area manager, and regional manager is that 9 out of 10 hires are going to come directly through your influence, directly through the things that you're doing. And it took me a good portion of my career in this industry to figure that out. And the last thing that I did wrong is I hired non-experienced loan officers. Now, we all get that this business is aging and we need to bring new talent in. But I created a lot of great, healthy structure around bringing people that were motivated, that had some sales experience, that had this key IQ that was necessary, that I thought was necessary to be successful in the mortgage business. and taking them through some phenomenal programs with, you know, mentorship that they followed during that season. Over half of those did not work out. So that was the hard way. So I would say that, you know, for a good portion of my time in the business, I had my head kind of stuck in the sand, because what I figured out after 15 years is that recruiting is actually easy. Recruiting is simple. One of the things that are what I would consider epiphanies along the way was I realized that storytelling, specifically connected to vision, makes for great recruiting. And I'll share with you a formula for that here in just a moment. I also figured out how to motivate recruits to move even when they were content or happy. So in this business, there's three groups of people. There's what I call the hot candidates. Those are the ones that typically move every 6 to 12 months regardless. There's the warm candidates. Those are the ones that can be moved every 2.5 years. And then there's the cold candidates. Those are the ones that are staying put. They'll spend 5 to 7 years at an organization. Your success is predicated on being able to move the cold talent. The cold talent is, I'm happy, I'm content, things are going well, I'm not looking to make a move. If you're going to get the highest, the most success that you can accomplish in this business, you're going to have to figure out how to move content talent, okay? And I'll tell you how to do that here in a few minutes. And then what I realized is that I only needed a few minutes per day. I don't have to do this for 4 hours a day. I don't have to time block an entire week at the beginning of the year to get a jump start on it. I just needed a few minutes per day. So I discovered this the hard way. I'm giving you the easy way. I've already mentioned that I launched 7 branches in 14 months. So let's go through the 3 secrets that I have and we'll talk about these individually after we get through this. Secret number 1, you have to become the attractive leader that everyone wants to work for. So when I say this word or this phrase, attractive leader, here's who I'm describing. The person who has a very clear vision, they're able to articulate that vision, and then they actually live in accordance with that vision. Now, at one point in my career, one of the hardest things that I had to do was come to this conclusion that I'm really not the attractive leader. I don't have a real clear vision. And when I say have a clear vision, if someone asked you right now, not what is your company vision, right? Because most companies have tenets or vision statements or purpose statements, or we call it our mission statement or whatever it is. Most great companies have that. Not what is your company vision, not what is your company mission statement. What is you as the individual leader? What is your vision statement, right? Like having clarity in that makes you an attractive leader. Talking about that, casting the vision around that makes you an attractive leader. And then living in accordance with that makes you an attractive leader. Now that's one part of it. We'll talk about more around that in just a moment. Secret number 2, you need a system and a process that's unique to you. Okay, now when I say unique to you, you are authentically you. Now nobody can duplicate that. If I built a recruiting model and said, hey, here are the 7 steps for success, and 1,000 people insert yourself into this process, what would happen is that bridge of excellence, right? There was a great quote by Newt Gingrich sometime over the last couple of years that I remember, and I'll butcher it up, but I'll give you the context of it, is that Newt Gingrich says that at some point we all build a bridge to this island of success, and I think at some point in my career I can go back to that. Like there was a moment where in 3 months I set 40 corporate site visits with leaders, right? I built this bridge of success to this island of excellence. What Newt Gingrich says is that the lake of mediocrity gets up on that bridge and tears it down. So as leaders, we have to always be building a new bridge to our island of excellence. So if you're going to be successful, if I gave you a system, I gave you a process that the general audience here could follow, what would happen is we'd all get on it, because Richard did it. We would tear that down in the lake of mediocrity and it would be broken. So it would work for a season. So when I say something that's unique to you, God only created one of you. There are things about your leadership, things about your belief system, things about your office structure, your company structure, the things that you do that are unique to you. I want to show you how to build a system and a process that's so unique to you that no one can duplicate it, okay? But beyond that, you need to do that in a location. So being able to track your candidate, being able to pick up conversations where you left off, it's so critical. So the CRM piece, I'll show you one that you can use. I think it's $6 a month. I don't have any vested interest in showing it to you. It's not Richard's system or Richard's tool. but I'll show you one that you can actually build out, a whiteboard CRM you can build out your own unique process in, and how to do that. And then secret number 3, you have to use your time wisely with creative tactics. You know, because if you don't build something that is sustainable, if you can't do this in 15 to 30 minutes a day, then you're just not going to do it long term. You'll do it like a P90X model. I'll do it for 90 days and then it's gone. Okay, so secret number 1, understand and communicate clearly who you are as an attractive leader. Here is why being an attractive leader, or what an attractive leader actually is. It's someone who has a clear vision with defined beliefs, and it's someone who acts true to that vision and belief. Okay. Now, there's three phases of vision. There's the creating vision, right, where we actually create something that's our vision, and some of you may have that. Most, I find, don't. And if you think, I do have a vision, then be able to regurgitate that immediately to somebody. Like, what is it? What's your vision? If you can't, then you don't have a clear vision. You need to create a clear vision. But the 3 stages of vision are really creating the vision, having clarity around the vision. This is where you find your voice. This means that you bring it up in your meetings, you bring it up in your one-on-ones, you're telling it to the people that are around you in your business, you're discussing it with candidates, recruits when you're talking to them. That's where you get clarity. You find your voice and your vision. And then the last part of it is being able to cast it. So casting vision, creating, clarity, and casting. Let me just tell you this. There are, in this industry, there's only a handful. In the mortgage business, there's only a handful of people that can cast a very clear vision. I call them visioneers. If you want to be successful in recruiting, your goal for 2018 is to become a visioneer. Now, some of you may be able to relate to this. I'm blessed today. I work with maybe a dozen what I call visioneers. These are people that are presidents of mortgage companies, head of sales, regionals that are running $1 billion group. I do work with about a dozen people that I would call visioneers, but they're few and far between. But you probably know someone that at some point in this business has cast such a vision for you that you feel like, I need to come alongside this person. You may be in a position today because you talked to a visioneer and they cast such a clear vision for you that you got on board with that vision and said, I will come alongside you in that vision. If you can't do that, then this is where you start. Okay, you have to be able to articulate to a recruit, to a potential candidate, a very clear vision. I liken this to, I think a great example of this is in the movie Braveheart. And if you're like me and you've watched that movie maybe a dozen times, you'll remember there's a scene in Braveheart, and it's a battlefield, and there's all of these Scottish peasants that are on the field, and there's 2 lords that are out there that are about to walk out to the English leaders that are on this field, and they're going to get more title, and they're going to get more, whatever, land or money or whatever it is. And these Scottish peasants begin to leave the battlefield because these lords that are there are not casting a very clear vision. In fact, the peasants begin to talk about, I'm not coming here to represent you. I'm not coming here to die for you so that you can get more stuff. And William Wallace arrives on that scene and cast a very clear vision for them that had them willing to draw their swords and come alongside them. So you have to become that kind of visioneer with people. So today, becoming the attractive leader is more important, more imperative than it ever has been. Okay, and let me tell you why. The power of social media and your ability to connect with an audience before you ever actually meet with that audience face to face does one of 2 things. It either puts you on a pedestal on a stage that gives you fertile soil to be able to plant that vision into, or it doesn't do that. And if it doesn't do that, you cast your seed on rocky ground. What happens? You don't actually end up with a successful next step with that recruit. So a lot of you, and I've actually looked at everyone's LinkedIn accounts and to see what you're doing. Out of this we've got over 25 people on this actual webinar today. Out of this entire group, one of you, and that one person's a bit marginal, is actually casting a really clear vision through this other medium that we have called LinkedIn. The reason why it's so powerful is that the moment you call me as a candidate, I'm going to go there, I'm going to check you out. Okay? And there are certain key things that you need to be doing in that space as an attractive leader that says, I have a vision. I'm actually living out my vision, because that's a continuation of the story. If it's not, then you go through this lens. And the lens, the perspective that they end up with you is one that may not be reality, but it will not help you, will not contribute to you in continuing that story and moving that person through to seeing you as an attractive leader. The other reason is that in this environment, you are finding more content candidates than ever before. The regulatory environment settled down. When we look at 2018, Fannie Mae is projecting fewer refinance business than ever before. We see companies scaling back in terms of the operational staff that they have because they're overstaffed right now. And so what that means is that from an operational efficiency standpoint, the business is good right now. And that hasn't always been true. When we look at the last 10 years where we had a dip in interest rates, all of a sudden you'd see a spike in production and companies got caught off guard. And so operational efficiency would go down and they would scale up, and then you'd see a dip and all of a sudden in volume, and all of a sudden rates would go back down again to a lower point. And so it would create this cycle of operational inefficiencies for companies that allow people to come in and to build teams based on this lack of operational efficiency. That is just not the case today, because we're looking into 2018 and Fannie Mae is saying that we're going to see a reduction in volume. Companies are now focused more on long-term creation of tools that are going to actually benefit loan officers. And so where most recruits are content, if you can't move a content recruit to a place where they see you as an attractive leader, then you're not going to be able to plant a seed of discontent with that individual to be able to move them. And so you have to be an attractive leader today. And the other part is that humans are pain avoiders, but humans are also pleasure seekers. And over the past 10 years or so, people have been able to move from pain to pleasure, and that's just not the case. And so you're really operating in one lane right now, where the attractive leader says, I've got a clear vision. There are things that I'm doing with my group, with my team or my teams that's very different than what your current leader is doing. You become the measuring stick to the candidate. You become the measuring stick to the recruit, okay? Forgive me here. I'm going to take a quick drink. I've had a cold. And I'm back at you. So let me tell you how to do this. I think you're aware that you have to become an attractive leader. How do you do this? Let me just tell you how I did it. It was a very simple process. There's a lot of ways to come at this. I'll just show you one easy way to do it. Back in 2010, I began to develop my vision. And I just said, what's already authentically true and real about Richard Milligan? And what I came up with was what I called pillars. So my thought process around that was, when you build a house, you kind of build it on these, pillars, or you build it on these cornerstones. My leadership, my teams are really built on my leadership cornerstones. What are those? And if I don't have them, then what should they be? And what I came up with was personal development was one of my pillars. And that was just something that's always been true about me. And there's a big story about that I could share with you that would go back to when I was just a kid. And at the age of 19, making a decision that I was going to have to develop myself if I was going to be successful. So personal development is something I've always been about. So I began to share that with people. What does it look like to be under my leadership from a personal development standpoint? The other part was leadership development. And the truth at the time, 2010, was that I wasn't actually developing my people to be leaders. I was saying that I wanted that. I was saying that that was true, and in my mind it was. But when I put it on paper, I really wasn't. And so it became one of my pillars, just so that I would actually work on it. I would develop myself in it. And so it became one of my pillars of my leadership. And then systems is something I always talked about. I talk about systems equals solutions to problems. It circumvents, human errors, and that means that we're more successful. And I would share that with people as part of my vision. And then the last one was growth. Not just any kind of growth, but organic growth. So if you were going to come alongside me in 2017, what would it look like for you in 2018? And what I began to measure was, what's the growth of the people that come to my leadership? And so I would talk about that. You don't have to, this is not fake it till you make it stuff. Now, what I will tell you is that as I began to share my vision, specifically around the leadership development piece, what I would tell people is just authentically where I was. And I would say, that's something that I'm working on. And here's what it looks like today. And here is how I'm working on this to become a better, grower of developer of people into leaders, but here's my belief system around that. So it was all authentic and real about me. I could share stories about each one of those with my recruits. Okay. So you have to communicate there's basically 4 stages to a recruiting presentation, whether you're doing it face to face or whether you're actually doing this over the phone. Some of you are doing this over the phone because you're regionals or areas, but if you're in a local market and you're doing this face to face, or you're a regional area doing it over the phone, there's really 4 stages to presenting the attractive leadership in those, what I call visioneer meetings. Okay. And basically, you have to communicate who you are as the attractive leader. You're talking about your vision in one of those stages, okay? Another way to frame this, and how I frame it today, is in three different ways. What is my mission? My mission is to help people by what? How do I achieve my mission? I achieve my mission, or I accomplish my mission by what? And then the third one, another way to frame this is, I will know, or I will measure when I've achieved my mission. Okay, I will know I've achieved my mission when, or I will measure my mission by. Okay, a very easy way, right? How am I going to help people? How am I going to accomplish this? And how am I going to measure it? How am I going to achieve it? Okay, so let me share my vision with you. Maybe this will help. So my vision today, which is much different from yours, because you're in the recruiting, you're actually a recruiting leader in the business. I'm coaching recruiting leaders. How I put mine today is, I help recruiting leaders grow their business faster than they would in the absence of my help. That's it. I help recruiting leaders grow their business faster than they would in the absence of my help. How I accomplish it, how I achieve this, is by teaching recruiting skills that enable leaders to vastly exceed any previous accomplishment. So that's how I achieve it. And then I'll measure my success by helping more than 100 recruiting leaders every year live the life only possible through growing their branches. So that's my vision, very clear in what I'm going to do. Specifically, some of the key words in there go back to some of my core values. Okay, that's a very easy way to frame it. Now, here's the truth in it. A lot of us can come up with some nice, cute 1-2 sentence visions, and I'm not using the word cute lightly, because if you create a vision, it's not really cute. But why I use the word cute around that is that we don't go much deeper than the creation of it. We don't gain a lot of clarity on why it's important to us. We're not able to cast that vision very clearly to people. And the reason why is that storytelling is connected to vision. Okay, so you see my last bullet point there, the power of storytelling. Storytelling is critical to vision. Okay, I'll just use the example, the 4 pillars I mentioned there. And let me share a story with you. Personal development. Why is personal development important to me? And I would share this with recruits when they were in front of me or on the phone with me. The reason why personal development is important to me goes all the way back. I was raised what I would consider dirt poor. Growing up, we lived in mobile homes. We got evicted. We moved house to house. I remember duct taping my tennis shoes. There were moments where I remember eating crackers and milk for breakfast because that was the only thing in the pantry. So as I began to become high schooler and look beyond that, I knew that when I left home after graduating high school, I was going to be on my own without a real strong family structure, because my family structure was very dysfunctional. I knew when I left the house that Richard Milligan was going to be on his own. I also had enough, awareness to understand that going to college was not going to be something that I was going to be able to do successfully. I didn't have the finances for it. I really didn't have the family support for it. And so I made a decision at the age of 19 that I was going to personally develop myself, that I was going to take it serious. So I began reading books. I began attending seminars. At the time, webinars didn't exist. This is 23 years ago or whatever. Webinars didn't actually exist, but I would go and meet with successful people, realize they were successful, and would say, will you go to lunch with me? And I would go to lunch with successful people, and I would ask hard questions, things that I wanted to know about business or things I wanted to know about growing as a human being. And so I took my personal development really seriously. And from the age of 19 to the age of 27, I became the youngest regional manager in a Fortune 500 company by the age of 27. And it wasn't because I had a lot of life experience. It was because I had taken personal development serious. I had a lot of knowledge and education because I had, for the course of 8 years, made myself a student of success, made myself a student of the art of success and the science of success. And so that's my story. So personal development is something that's so important to me. And so, as I now, as a leader, lead other people, it's my goal to help people get further in their career. It's my goal to help people become better business people, more successful, better husbands, better mothers, better parents. I mean, those are my goals, and it goes all the way back to the beginning. So I would share that story with people. Now that connects the dots on my vision. Now within that storytelling structure, there's basically 3 components. We won't talk about them right now just for the sake of time, but there's 3 components to great storytelling. You can probably pull some of those out, but conflict in a story is important. Like if I'm a leader and I tell perfect stories to people, in other words, golden spoon, silver spoon type stories, people don't get to hear the conflict, and what resonates with people is the struggle. Okay, so I will tell you that about storytelling. The struggle of you getting to the place that you are today and sharing that with people is so critical, because that's what resonates with people, and that's what authentic leaders do. They don't represent this fake it till you make it mindset. They actually are authentic and real about the journey that they're on. And so use storytelling to communicate your vision, okay? Okay, we'll transition. Secret number 2, build a process and a system that's unique to you. Okay, this is all about tracking your candidate from the moment that you identify them, okay, and all the way through hire and beyond. So when I say identifying them, you should be identifying talent as a first step as a recruiting leader. It doesn't matter whether you're using Zillow to do that, whether you're getting a CoreLogics market tracks report to do that, whether you're getting information from your title company, from, you may be getting some leads from your title insurance reps, maybe getting some grassroots stuff from your loan officers, wherever you're getting those. You then need to take a next step and really research them out and identify who they are. So that's a part of your part of the process. When you make a call, and so I'll give you a little nugget here. When I said don't ever make another cold call, when you make a call, do not ever cold call somebody with at least having 3 pieces of information about them. And I don't mean first name, last name, NMLS number. I mean 3 pieces of information that allow you to have a conversation with them. Okay. Let me just model this. I'm going to pause real quick just so that you can see it. Let me pull across here. I'm going to pull across the tool. I'm just going to show you one simple tool that I can actually use to identify 3 key pieces of information about a loan officer. I'm going to go to Zillow. I'm going to hit the mortgages and then lender review tab, and it's going to automatically locate me. I'm actually on the north side of Oklahoma City, but let's just do Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's a random place. I don't think. Let's just actually do the state of Pennsylvania. I should have picked an easier state to time. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to do the state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to scroll through here. Companies are going to be the ones that show up first, but when I do Pennsylvania, it's going to pull 41 pages of loan officers. Here's a guy, Daniel, that actually has 109 reviews. I'm gonna pull him up, and I'm going to show you the process of pulling 3 nuggets out on Daniel that will help us. First off, it appears that Daniel has a cell phone number over here. I'm never going to call an office number. I'm just never going to do it. The fastest way to get a brick wall put up in front of you is to call somebody at the office. Okay, you can get a cell phone number, and if you aren't convinced that you can, then you're not doing enough research. I'll take that and I will verify that cell phone number through a tool called searchbug.com. I'll just enter it into SearchBug, hit enter. It'll tell me there's a tool on SearchBug that will tell you whether it's a cell phone number or an office number or a voice over IP number, okay? I'll verify that. I'm actually going to go to here, and I'm going to pull up. I'm going to try and figure out 3 things on Daniel. Now, I've never looked at Daniel's profile before, so I'm going to just talk out loud through this while I'm reading his profile and trying to identify 3 nuggets. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2002. Great. Guess what year I started? 2002. There's an immediate connection for me. I can use that in the conversation. He has over 15 years of experience. Looks like he's been in multiple roles. He loves to play baseball. He played college baseball. Great. I've got him and I have something in common. We played college sports. He loves to golf, it looks like. Graduated from Arcadia University. He enjoys the outdoors, it looks like. I have another thing in common. He's got a basset hound. So he's got some great information on here, okay? He even has a statement on here about he takes pride. He has the states he's licensed in. I may even bring those up. I'm going to go through a review, and I'm going to look at one that really stands out to me, and I will bring it up on the call with him. A recent review where someone said something really cool about him. I'm not seeing anything that really jumps out at me, but you could do that kind of research on every single individual. So if I'm going to call Daniel, I'm actually going to bring up these things in conversation with him. And a little scripting with a call and how it may go with Daniel may be just like this. Daniel, hey, it's Richard Milligan, and I'm calling from ABC Mortgage Company. I've done quite a bit of research on you. I'm calling just to introduce myself because we have a lot of things in common, and I wanted to see if there was an opportunity for us to just have a cup of coffee. But I noticed that you and I started in the industry at the same year in 2002, so you've been in the business for 15 years. And I'll lead with these things, right, as we engage in conversation. And tell me, you played college baseball. I played college basketball. Tell me a little bit about that. We played at Arcadia University. Right? I'll ask some questions. I'm going to try and engage him in a general conversation and then try to move him to a next step, which would be a face-to-face. But if you call Daniel and you don't have this information, Daniel's going to immediately assume that you are the typical recruiting leader, and his guard's going to go up. Where you can make it relational, make it personal, he's going to drop his guard. Now, I've got all kinds of incredible, cool stories. I have moved people to next steps that were complete skeptics. Even when I said I've done quite a bit of research on you, and I see that we have some things in common. I moved a guy that at the time was doing $8 million a month in volume, that had 5 people on his team, and I moved him because I had done so much research on him. And when I said to him, we have some things in common, he sarcastically said, "Oh, I bet we do." And I was like, no, I've done a bunch of research on you. And he said, "Well, what do you know about me?" And I started to lead into it. I know that you have 4 other loan officers underneath your branch. I know that 3 of those loan officers are relatively new to the industry when you took them on over a year ago. So I know you're a risk taker. You're probably a little bit of an entrepreneur because not everybody's willing to do that. I know that you're probably a systems and process guy, because you're bringing new people out that have no experience in the business, and you're successful with them. I can tell you've had them for over a year underneath your umbrella. I know that you're community minded, right? You asked a question about that. My response to that was, in my research, you actually held a fundraiser for someone that was actually, I can't remember what it was. They had MS or they were sick in some way, and his entire branch, I put together a fundraiser for them. When I got through the things that I had researched about him, he said, "That's pretty impressive. No, why do you say it? Why are you calling me, and why do you think I'd be a good fit?" And I explained to him, based off of my research, why I thought he would be a good fit, and I moved him to next steps. So the power of really doing some research on people cannot be expressed. Take a few minutes and make sure you're identifying your talent. And once you identify that talent, have a place where you can actually put them, okay? So I'm going to show you a tool. And I'm going really quickly through some of this with you to give you as much content as possible. But I'm going to show you a tool. I use a system that's called Pipedrive. Simply pipedrive.com. You can get a 2-week trial on it. Again, I don't have any vested interest in you using the tool. It's one that I've used. It's what I'm going to show you. Okay. Here's why you need a place to really store your candidates. Having a place to track your recruits is critical to creating next steps, okay? I liken recruiting to speed dating. So I've been married for 19 years. I can go back to when I first met my wife, Leah. And if I had met her and didn't have a very clear next step, then we wouldn't be married today. And after I had that next step, which was asking for a phone number, if I didn't have a clear next step, which was I'm going to call you, then we wouldn't be married today. And once I called her, if I didn't have a clear next step, which was, why don't we get together and go out this weekend, then we wouldn't be married today. And I could go on and on and on, because after the first date, I had a very clear next step. And after that, I had a very clear next step. So why I liken recruiting to speed dating is this, is that recruiting is about building relationships. But somehow, as recruiting leaders, we've gotten this mindset of it's about making phone calls and getting face-to-face with people and telling them about our great tools that we have at the organization. And so most of us are leading incorrectly, even in our presentations, where we're talking about, here's what I hear. You talk about products, you talk about operational efficiencies, you talk about your marketing department, talk about your CRMs, the specific tactics that you're using. Those are the things that you typically lead with. You may even talk about compensation. Every single one of those is left brain thinking. Left brain thinking is vetting. You tell me your comp, and I'll vet you against somebody else. Tell me about your CRM. I'll vet you against somebody else. I'm vetting you against my current company as you tell me about it. Tell me about your products. I may even ask to now see a product list, or I may ask to see your specific product guidelines. If you're getting stuck in those situations while recruiting, it's because you're only engaging left brain thinking with your recruiting. So I recently coached a Scotsman's Guide Top 200 loan officer who was running their own branch. They had the title of branch manager, but they weren't hiring people underneath their umbrella, and they wanted to move towards growing branches. This individual actually set up face-to-face meetings, and you can imagine it was pretty easy to do. Set up face-to-face meetings with 3 different organizations just to see how they were recruiting. And his response to me was, "It's unbelievable how you've nailed it." Everybody showed up, and what did they do? They talked about those things. Talk about our products. Talk about operational efficiencies. Let's talk about compensation. Those are the things that people are leading with. The good ones are talking about corporate culture. And corporate culture doesn't answer the question, what's in it for me? Okay, so I'm getting a little off track here, but the reason why I'm getting a little off track is because this statement that speed dating and recruiting are in alignment, it's about building relationship. And the fastest way to build relationship is to move people away from left brain thinking and to right brain thinking. We go back to our storytelling. Why is storytelling important? Because stories emit emotion. Stories is right brain thinking. Your recruiting processes today are primarily centered around left brain thinking with your recruits. You have to move that entire process to right brain thinking. When you get to a second meeting with someone and you haven't talked about products, and you haven't talked about compensation, and you haven't brought up operational efficiencies, and you haven't brought up your CRM and the white gloves treatment of your marketing department, or whatever it is that you're talking about, you know that you're on the right path. And that's how you move people quickly. Trust me, I know. The CRM that I'm going to show you how to use, before using the CRM and tracking and really honing my recruiting skills in this area that I'm sharing with you, it took me 18 to 24 months to move a candidate. After using this tool for about 14 months, I remeasured it, because this tool will actually allow you to measure the time that from the time you put somebody into it to the time you actually hire them. It was 62 days. If you move to right brain thinking in your recruiting, you will engage your recruits at a much higher level. You will run into less roadblocks around some of the things that you may be running into roadblocks around, because you're casting clear vision, you're using right brain thinking, but you've got to have a place to track this. Okay? So having a next step, one of my bullet points there, is not having a real clear next step is what kills momentum. So a lot of next steps that I see after this face-to-face meeting with a recruit is, I'll send you some information via email, or yeah, I'll send you a couple of videos on our corporate culture. That's not a real clear next step, because then what? Then what is, if you have some questions, let me know, or I'll follow up to see what questions you have. Right? The people that are doing this right are creating so much momentum from their vision casting, from their visioneer presentation, and they've got a very clear next step, right? That they're moving people to, that's creating momentum. So not having a clear next step is hurting you, but the CRM is going to be key, because you're going to always know what your next step is. You're going to, next bullet point, create process unique to you, right? It's going to be centered around your core values, your vision, your core convictions, your why, and then aligning that with their why. And then always being able to pick up from your conversation logs. Listen, there's so many little things that are really big things. That's why I'm bringing these things up to you. Last week, if you would have called me out on maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, we had our 4-year-old Haven that was sick in our house. She had the stomach bug. And if you've ever had a 4-year-old that's sick, what you know is that they don't ever make it to the toilet. They throw up on their bed, they throw up on themselves, they throw up on the carpet. And so for 3 days, we're cleaning up messes nonstop. And so if you'd have called me on one of those days after getting a couple hours sleep the night before, and you'd have asked me a question, how are things going for you? I'd have said, man, I am super tired today because my daughter Haven has had some version of a stomach flu and she's been throwing up, right? If you grab that nugget of information, right, and the next week you called me and said, hey, how's Haven doing? And I may have even said my 4-year-old Haven, right? How's your 4-year-old Haven doing, right? That's a continuation of the conversation. Now, what's happening is you're talking to recruits and they're giving you little nuggets like that, but you're not capturing them. And here's why it's so important. We all have that best friend in our life, right? The best friend I'm talking about is in my life is Thad. I haven't seen Thad in 6 months. Sometimes I don't see him for a year. But the moment Thad and I get back together, we pick up where we left off, right? You all have a friend or 2 or 3 or however many that you'd say, I haven't seen them in forever, but I know if I saw that friend today, maybe high school, maybe college, maybe work related, but that friend, if I saw them today, we would pick up where we left off. The reason why you can pick up where you left off is because you have relationship, you have this relational capital, you know each other's stories, right? The more that you engage with the recruit, the more you know their story. You take that information, you gather it in one place, and you're always able to pick it up, right? If someone says my wife's birthday was yesterday, or my daughter's graduating next week, or those are all conversation nuggets you have to capture, and you pick them up, because the power of it is this. Next year, when you call me around the same time and you say, hey, I remember last year when we were talking and Haven was throwing up, she had the stomach flu. How's this winter season, sickness season been with 4 kids? I'd be like, holy smokes, like, how in the world do you remember that? You just moved up on the relational rung because we're now building relational capital because you know things about me. No more picking up or trying to pick up where you left off or guessing where you left off. And if you're going to recruit on a large scale, calling hundreds of people, you're going to need to be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going along on this webinar. I'm going to really breeze through this real quick. Creating your own whiteboard CRM. I'm going to pull across on the screen. I already opened this up. Okay. I'm gonna skip over a lot of this just so I can go quickly, but this is all whiteboarded. This means that if you set up a 2-week trial, you're going to see all of these as being blank. I created these. Here's the power of next steps. If you're a branch manager, you're only going to have a top loan officer list. If you're an area, you probably have a top loan officer and top ranger list. And if you're a regional that can hire other regionals, or other areas, you may have a top regional manager list. And so this is where we begin. You identify new prospects, and this allows you to move them through the stages that you build out. And I'll show you some stages here in just a second. You can be prepared to take some screenshots of those if you want, so that you can remember those. But this allows me to just add a deal and to create an individual. If I open these up, I can actually create notes. You see there's ability to create activities. There's things that I can do in this. But I want you to understand the power of next steps, okay? So when I call this person that's not the real deal, when I identify them as talent, I'm going to put them in this category of new prospects. When I'm ready to call them, I'm going to move them. Once I talk to them, I'm going to move them to, once I actually make my first phone call, I'm going to move them. If I don't reach them, that's not an appropriate acronym, but that's follow-up to first phone call. I'm doing this to get as much on the screen as possible. The IV stands for interview with Richard. And as I move them through these stages, I'm just dragging them across. Okay. After my interview, I may send them a presentation. That's the next step, right? So I always know where these people are, and I can always look. And so as you stack people in here, what you're going to find is this is creating momentum for you. Okay. Recruiting can be discouraging at times. So that psychologically, you're showing yourself, I am moving people from a start line over here at new prospects, and I'm moving them to a finish line. Now, notice I have top organizations in here. And the reason why is because as you come across lenders that you're going to consistently come across, that's a great place to add a deal. You may name the deal, the name of that lender, and then open that up as you get nuggets of information. You figured out what their comp plan is. Great. Open that up and put it in there. You figured out that they're having some operational issues and that people don't like that person that's now the new head underwriter or head of underwriting. Take that and put that in there. Those nuggets of information can come back and help you move people. Now, pipeline is where you start. What happens after you do a face-to-face with somebody is they end up in 3 categories. Not a fit, great fit cold, great fit hot. Now, these are all other stages that you can build out in here, but for now, what we're going to focus on is not a fit, great fit cold, great fit hot. You need to then have the ability to take this person that you just did a face-to-face with and then move them to one of those other pipelines to continue. If you want to take a screenshot of that, I'll leave that up for a second. You will build, each one of these is whiteboarded. It's very simple to go into your settings and just create each one of those. I will explain this to you. I can now click anywhere and I would drop that candidate into any of these categories. Okay, so if it's a great fit cold or great fit hot, I would then drop them into those categories. Let me share with you kind of the great fit hot category, since we're short on time, so that you can kind of see the mindset behind this. What happens when I drop them in there is that now they've moved into that category, right? The corporate presentation category. And now I can then pick up what my process is. Now, this process should be unique to you. I'm encouraging you, get outside the box on this. I will walk you through what I did, and it was so powerful. But it all went back to my core values. It all went back to my vision. It all went back to those core convictions that I had and revealing that to people. So what I would do after I met face-to-face was I would ask for the home address. Okay? If you're going to get a few ideas out of this, you take that one down. Okay? The most powerful thing that you can do after you do your vision or presentation to somebody is say, I have something I'd like to send you. What's your home address? You can do that over the phone call. Via a phone call if you do your vision or presentation there, or you can do it face-to-face. What I found is this. Here's what happens. The home address creates an entirely new filter that you as the attractive leader get to present yourself through. And here's why. Our people, this is just the truth, your people, I don't care how great your team is, your people go home, right? We're coming up on a month end. Your people go home, and where they miss a deal that may get pushed, or maybe they have a deal that busts out, and whether it was their fault that it busted out or not, or it doesn't matter. What they have to do is go home and break that news to their spouse. We started out the month with a budget for January of $12,000, and we're ending the month looking at January with $6,000 going into the month, right? The spouse creates their own filter of this business, of the place that they work, or their spouse works, and the easiest way to create an ally is to represent your attractive leadership to the spouse passively. So what I figured out is that I would send a book, and the book that I would send was Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect. I would, the front of that book actually has a place for you to sign. I would sign the book, Cheers to Your Greater Success, and I would send that to my recruit. Now, there's a lot of books that you can use to do that if you want that. We're at the end of the year. If you want a really powerful book to do that with, right now it's not too late to actually buy a bunch of these, John Gordon's book called One Word, and to ship those out to your top recruits. That's a powerful, powerful thing to do. Stick a little note in there. Hope you take the journey with me. I'm going to read this book at the beginning of the year, and just send it to those top recruits. I would take the Compound Effect and I would ship it, now that I have the home address, to their home address with a note. And I would just, simple note, it was great meeting you next week. And we'll look forward to our further conversations, and they would get the book. And what would happen is that the spouse would get something. The spouse would say, hey, where'd you get that book from? Oh yeah, I met with this guy, Richard Milligan, and he's really about personal development, and he sent me a book that he thought was really exciting and intriguing, and so here we go. I'm going to read this book, or I have this book. It's the best business card that you can have, okay? And then beyond that, I would send them I had a creative marketing idea. You could use a lot of things. I used it's the whiteboard animated video, and I would take their head and put it on a bobblehead, my head and put it on a bobblehead. You can steal their photo from LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever and create a cutesy video. I sent it to them to be funny, but to be engaging. That was the next step. And then I would send them a goals email. Now, in the Compound Effect, there's part of what he talks about is goal setting. There's these 8, categories for goal setting. I prefabricated an email that I could send again and again and again. And then once I gave them a certain amount of time, a couple of weeks, they would get an email from me. Hey, don't know if you made it to this chapter in the book yet or not, but the goal setting part is so powerful. I wanted to send you the goal setting PDF that you need in order to set goals using his book. And in the book, he's got a rhythm register. I would send another email the week after with the rhythm register, which is another chapter. And I would move them through a process. The rack is a random act of kindness, and I would move them through a process. Okay, you need to have at least 7 steps built out here. 7 is a critical number when you're recruiting somebody. If you don't give up until you get to 7, okay? Because we're short on time, that's all I can give you in terms of content there, but hopefully that's helpful to you. Next steps is so critical. Okay, so let's transition now to the power of time. When I say 15 minutes, the reason why I use the 15-minute number is that the 12 to 15 hats that I realize you wear in a day, if I ask you to do an hour or 2 hours, it's not sustainable. So sustainability in the area recruiting is something I've come back to again and again and again. It's one thing that if you spend any time around me, I'll ask the question over and over. If you come up with an idea, is it sustainable? You want a great book around this, you can read Greg McCowan's book, Essentialism, because there are certain things that are essential to recruiting. Not everything, what I'm showing you may be a little bit like feel like you're drinking from a fire hose right now, but there's a few basic principles here that if you pull those out and you sustain those, you'll be a better recruiter, right? The home address, that's sustainable. Creating an easy, simple system where you're storing your recruits in, that will take you 15 minutes. And then you can start putting them in there. That's sustainable. Stop making cold calls. Only make warm calls. That's sustainable. Get to a place where sustainability is at the heart of this, because ultimately, as a recruiting leader, the ones that go from not being successful to actually launching 10, 12, 15 branches and running billion-dollar groups are the ones that start with sustainability. And once that, whatever it is they're doing, becomes sustainable and they can add on more, then they add on a little bit more. And when that's more sustainable and they can add on a little bit more, they add on a little bit more. So this is not, what I don't want you to walk away from is a P90X version, which is the society view of most things. Read this book and get rich. Here are the 10 steps to trading and becoming a millionaire. Here's P90X, get the best body of your life in 90 days. This is not one of those systems. Take a few things from this, sustain them, and then take a few other things. But 15 to 30 minutes is what I'm asking you. So here are a couple of secrets around this. Time blocking recruiting activities is important. So what I found is that people that try to identify talent and then call talent right away is that those are 2 different activities, right? So if I go to Zillow and I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on NMLS, Consumer NMLS, researching you out, I'm using Google to do some organic searches on you, and then I hop over to now making a call, I have now completely changed my lane. And so if I stay in this lane of actually identifying talent, where I've got LinkedIn up, Zillow up, Facebook up, and an organic Google search up, and I'm actually going through, my goal over the next 15 minutes is to identify 10 to 20 people that I can call on the next day, that activity is more productive. So I encourage you, figure out how to identify things that are singular, not plural. Something that you can do that's a single activity. Time block for that activity, and then put it on your schedule as recurring. So on Tuesdays, Mondays are horrible days to call recruits, by the way, right? That's everybody knows good loan officers get contracts on Monday. What I found is that Tuesday is a good day to do research on people. Wednesday's a great day to call people. It's the middle of the week, and really Thursday things begin to slack off before they begin thinking about Friday and trying to make sure they're in front of all their agents before the weekend again. Wednesdays and Thursdays are your best days to actually make those calls. So time block Tuesday to actually do your research, time block Wednesday to actually call, okay? And now you've got a place to store the information, so you can just store it in a format, and the next day it's still there. The rhythm of making calls back to back to back is powerful, okay? The other thing I would tell you is this. You see in parentheses, priorities are protected. This is a priority. So if you need to you create some cardboard funny sign and put it on your door handle while you're making your calls or while you're actually, identifying talent, then do it, because you have to protect this. This can't be, if you're going to be successful, and there will be people on this call. I mean, I've got a guy who 60 days ago was trying to figure out how he's going to grow his branch. He's hired 7 loan officers, and they're having to relocate in the last 60 days. Prioritizing recruiting is so important, and he's not doing the P90X version. He's doing this a few minutes a day. Okay, the other way, top 30 recruits list. There are going to be days where life happens, right? Deals blow up, loan officers blow up. You're a firefighter. I get that. Okay, if you develop this mindset of I can focus on one recruit each day, that gets easy. Now it's an easier concept. Is that sustainable? It totally is. You can focus on one person each day of the month. One of the ways that you can do that, and my next bullet point, is use Slide Dial. Once you've engaged a candidate, once you called me and you found out that Haven was puking, you can now engage me passively with a tool like Slide Dial. And when I pop up, today's the 28th, if Richard Milligan is on the 28th, he's 28th out of your 30 people, and you know Richard is the person you always call on that day, and you run out of time and you're headed home because you've got some sort of party to go to, or the kids are sick, or you just stayed at the office really long, you had things all over the place, you can actually go to Slide Dial, which is a smartphone app, and you can actually backdoor voicemail. Know you're going to backdoor, be able to get my voicemail automatically. You can do that on your way home, and you can just leave a message. Richard, you crossed my mind today. Was wondering how Haven was doing. Hey, holler at me next week. I'd love to set coffee up with you and see how things were going, how things went with your December. You can do that, okay? One of the things that's a really easy way to communicate with your top recruits list very quickly, and my next bullet point, is to develop a month-end great story. Now, you can text message that, cut and paste that to all your candidates. And so here's what I would do. About the 20th of every month, send out a message to your team. And if you don't have a team right now, you're building a team, send this to other branch managers that you're connected with. Okay? Do you mind giving me a story, a great story of how we as a company, or how we as a branch, or how we as a group impacted somebody this month? Get that great story. Once you get it, put it in some context. It's short enough that you can actually text it. That's not 300-word essay. And then take that message and cut and paste it to your top candidates. And here's why. Text messaging has a lot of people are trying to use email. Go back to that bridge example and the island of excellence. Marketers ruin everything. Okay. So marketers have ruined the phone. They've ruined the normal phone, and they're in the process of ruining the cell phone. Marketers have ruined email. Where you used to be able to get a 50-60 open rate on email, you're lucky to get a 4% open rate on email today. Okay, so email is not a great way to communicate. If you communicate via text message, text messaging has a 99% open rate. 37% of people respond within the first 12 minutes. Okay. So a rule around texting: don't text on first contact. Okay, that's called spam. Use your personal cell phone number when you're texting, and then shorter is better. Okay, let me go back through that again. Here's your rules on texting: don't text on first contact. That's considered spam. Use your personal cell phone number, and then shorter is better. But you can take a great story. For example, we closed the deal in 8 days, right? Hey, I know it's the last day of the month, and I would always send it around 5, 6 o'clock on the last day of the month. Send that short text message to them. Hey, just wanted to let you know we had a deal that this is what happened last month. Or here's a story of how we impacted a family at Christmas. Or with the New Year's coming up, we've been working on setting our goals, and when we were evaluating what we accomplished in 2012, we've grown X%. Those are all great month-end stories, okay? The next one, the power of having your assistant dial for appointments. Okay, some of you don't have appointments, so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But this is a time savings. You can give your assistant a simple script they can follow once you've identified your talent to call them. And here's the power of this. The power of this is that when somebody calls me and says, hey, Richard, so-and-so asked me to reach out to you. They've been doing a lot of research on you, and they'd love to meet with you. The context of that is different than if somebody calls me directly themselves. The context is that someone who asked somebody else to call me is now on a pedestal. What we figured is that we figured out that by having an assistant dial for us and make that initial phone call, that we increased our chances of setting a face-to-face with that individual by almost 300%. I'm not making the number up. Like, seriously. We went from like 1 out of 10 to almost 3 to 4 out of 10 that we would set face-to-face appointments by having a good script and by having an assistant dial for us. Okay? So even if you're having your assistant dial for you and setting up an appointment on your calendar to actually speak with them over the phone, like the assistant can do that. I'm calling on behalf of Richard Milligan. He's done a lot of research on you in the market, and you're a super impressive individual. And Richard would love to schedule some time, 15 minutes to speak with you next week. How's Tuesday at 3:45 work for you? He's open then. A simple script like that, it's very powerful because it puts you on a pedestal. It's an automatic improvement. It allows you to have to assign, delegate something to somebody else. But if you don't have an assistant, you don't have to go hire an assistant for this. I would encourage you, find another branch manager in your organization that wants to grow and say, listen, will you make calls for me on a weekly basis, and in exchange, I'll make calls for you? Two things happen from that: accountability, but the flip side of that is that you now will be on the pedestal. When they call on your behalf representing you, you will increase your opportunity of getting in front of them, okay? The next one, the power of the scorecard. Let me share a scorecard with you. Give me a second here. Okay, this is a scorecard that I created around recruiting behaviors. Let me walk you through this. Here's the truth. Printing a scorecard like this is powerful. And the reason why is you're going to write out your behaviors over here. You see over here on the left-hand side of the screen, the behaviors, right? You're going to, on a daily basis, track those behaviors. Okay, so for example, if you said you're going to connect on LinkedIn with 10 people a day, right? You would come all the way across here. If you said you're going to do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you would go to your goal. That would be 10 each day times 5 days. You would be at 50. Okay, every single day. This sheet lays beside you. And when you see the behaviors that you're responsible for, when you don't do them, you put a big fat X there. When you do them, you put the number of times that you did them. And at the end of the week, you add those up to a net score. Or you'll do, I achieved 48, my goal is 50, my net score is -2. This allows you to understand the rhythm of your recruiting. It's so important because we will do short spurts of dynamic and incredible activity and then go for long seasons where we don't sustain it, and then come back to another short spurt of crazy, ridiculous activity and go for a long season not sustaining it, and then wake up and go, why am I not having success in recruiting? Because we just went through one of those dynamic spurts of effort and energy. This measures the rhythm of your behaviors, okay? We all love to measure what I call lead measures, right? You think they're lead measures, but they're not. Like, we think lead measures are, I'm going to hire 7 loan officers, or I'm going to build 3 branches, or I'm going to grow by 10 million a month in volume. But we all see that as lead measures. Those are actually lag measures. Okay, the lag measure is that no, you don't just end up with 7 loan offers. You don't just end up with 10 million more in volume. The lead measures are, what are you doing in front of that? And most of us don't measure that. So start measuring your lead measures. Your lead measures are your behaviors. What are your daily activities? Right? What's the rhythm of what you're doing on an every single day basis centered around recruiting? Now, because you will actually put this on paper, once you put it on paper, for the most part, it doesn't change a whole lot. From time to time, it will. So if you say, I'm going to put that idea of the monthly great story idea on my calendar on the 20th, well, that's about the 3rd week of each month. So in the 3rd week of each month, your behavior and your action sheet's going to change a little bit, right? You're going to say, one time, I'm going to send out an email to my team asking for a great story. And one time, the next week, I'm going to actually text on my top candidates list the great story, okay? Let me give you an example of what one could look like. If you're wondering, I'm not real sure what that should look like, you should always be identifying and researching new candidates, okay? You should be doing that. You should always be calling new candidates. Now, the calling new candidates gets easier. I, for one, hate cold calling. It gets easier when you have someone calling on your behalf to set appointments. Think about that for a moment. And then the extension of that was when you talk to them, you know a lot about them. This gets much easier if you'll follow that process. Asking for the story for month end, we talked about that. Following up with 3 candidates daily, you can use SlideOwl and in 3 minutes follow up passively with candidates. I love passive communication. I don't expect you to call me back. I just want to let you know you were on my mind. How powerful is that? Their own managers, their own leaders aren't doing that. Handwritten follow-up cards. You got a face-to-face with somebody, or you did a phone call with somebody, you should write a follow-up card. That's a great next step. These are all what I call jabs. Okay, this business, we think recruiting is about right hooks, right? It's like we call somebody, let's do coffee. We get on LinkedIn, we connect, can we meet? I mean, those are all right hooks. This business, recruiting leaders think it's all about right hooks. It's not. If you're a corporate recruiter, it's about right hooks. Those guys have to get really good at right hooks. As a recruiting leader, you're a jabber. Okay, it's like the boxing context: jabbing, 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 and then once I've established relationship, I will right hook you. Writing a follow-up card to a thank you for connecting on LinkedIn. Oh my goodness, powerful. Writing a thank you card for seeing somebody at a networking event, powerful. Passive voicemails, powerful. Those are easy things that you can do. The text story at the end of the month, we talked about that. Passive voicemail with I thought of you. Secret tactic not mentioned here. If you want to figure out what this one is, I'm holding a LinkedIn webinar tomorrow. You can show up to that. If you want access to that, just text. Don't text me. Shoot me an email. I'll give you access to that. I'll register you for that. LinkedIn's a very powerful tool for the recruiting leader to build their book of business. I set 40 appointments over the course of 3 months using LinkedIn, and so there's a secret tactic there that I believe is critical. Thank you for the connection message on LinkedIn. That could be a recruiting activity. What I find here, look at the goals category. What I find here is that good recruiting leaders are on the low end 80 and on the high end 120. Those are sustainable. So think about it. If every single week you sustain this, what if you sustain this for 52 weeks? Every single one of these. 12 times during the month, you text 30 people the story of the month, right? Every single day, you're identifying 5 new candidates. You're asking your assistant, or you're asking another Brainstream manager to call 5 candidates, right? If you're doing these things every single day, your score is going to be somewhere on the low end 80, on the high end 120, depending on your behaviors, and you will be successful, okay? So the reason why I talk about the recruiting made simple system is that these are the different pieces we've talked about today. The vision piece, right? Communicating vision. There's aspects of this that in an hour and a half, I don't have the time to share. Ultimately, you start with vision and how you communicate your vision. You do that verbally, but you also do that in places like LinkedIn and Facebook. We talked about the CRM system, how critical it is, right? To understand, have next steps, and have an ongoing conversation log. Some of these things are behaviors, right? The recruiting scorecard, those are behaviors. Accountability, that's a key component to recruiting. People that are on an island are very rarely successful in recruiting. Figure out, how do you create accountability? That may be another manager. That may be a spouse, right? That could be somebody that's a leader over you, right? And then there's some of these other things that are ideas. I've brought up some of those. I don't have time to really go over everything with you today. The things that we ran out of time to discuss, the 4 stages of the Visioneer presentation, that's an idea. What I realized as I started having a lot of success is that I was structuring my presentations in 4 stages. We ran out of time to talk about that. Inside those 4 stages, there were 2 critical components that I was actually using that allowed me to create next steps with people. And so we ran out of time to discuss that. We didn't get a chance to discuss the 3X storytelling structure. All great stories go into a 3X structure. That's the key to telling powerful stories. Recruiting venue tactics. For those of you that have that need to put butts in seats, as I call it, that means you've got an office or multiple offices that you've got empty chairs. Recruiting venues. There's a way to do this where you can hire 3 to 5 loan officers in a single venue. Don't be skeptical of this. It gets done all the time. There's a process around that. We ran out of time to discuss that. Increasing your chances of hiring top loan officers through staging of local office visits. You should be staging visits. In fact, after you do a Visioneer presentation, the next step should be sending someone into your local office to actually visit it, but you need to stage it. You control the environment that somebody comes into. Most of us are just inviting them, or we're not inviting them at all. But where you can stage that, you can actually take somebody from being 50-50, best case scenario, to 90+%. Because you're staging the local office visit. We did discuss when to get the home address or how to get the home address. And then, whoops, I didn't mean to pop that up over the bottom. The last one we didn't discuss, how to create a culture, a recruiting culture inside your team, right? You are not on your own if you have a team. Where you have a team that understands the goals and the vision and what you're trying to accomplish, you can actually create a recruiting culture, not just inside the office, but actually using the platform, LinkedIn. You can actually create a recruiting culture there. So as part of this, everything I've given to you is yours to have. And I'll put up this presentation. You can go back to it. But I do want to offer those of you that are looking at 2018 and going, I've got some larger goals. I want to actually build something more significant. I don't believe that I can do this on my own. I want to give you an opportunity to go through an 8-week coaching plan with me, where we actually go through some of the things we're talking about today. We actually build out an entire recruiting system that's yours. Okay? So in my 8-week coaching model, here's what you get. You get an 8-week weekly one-on-one coaching meeting with me. We work through the process of creating your vision, right? We talked about the 3 stages of vision. That is where you actually create the vision, have clarity in the vision, find your voice in the vision, and then are able to cast the vision. So that says setting up your 4 pillars. Sometimes what comes out of that is different things, but the 4-pillar context is the context that I originally used to create my vision. But ultimately what will come from that is you will have your own vision. You'll have your own vision. You'll have that with what I call anchor stories. Now, anchor stories are what anchor your entire presentation. You go to those. That's right brain thinking versus left brain thinking. And the anchor stories are critical to getting your vision across to people and motivating them to next steps. So we do that in 8-week coaching. Set up your whiteboard CRM. I'll actually work through your vision and through your core convictions, your core belief system. You'll actually have a core belief document that you'll fill out for me that will help me get to this and working alongside you. But we'll build out your whiteboard CRM with your core values in mind. And that's why it's so powerful, is that as you engage with candidates, they're going to keep coming back to the vision you've already cast. I'm going to help you structure your 15 minutes of recruiting per day. And this looks different for everybody because you all have different resources. You're going to have a different vision. Some of you are going to lean more towards a platform like LinkedIn maybe because of the area you're covering. Some of you are going to be more micro and more market-centered, and so it's going to look different in structuring your 15 minutes of recruiting per day, but I'll help you structure that. Because LinkedIn is such an important component to this, most of you need to build your influencer platform. You just don't have one. Okay, so I'm going to help you build your influencer platform on LinkedIn to 5,000 connections. There's a way to do this very easily in 30 days. I'll teach you that. It's a cheating system to get there. I didn't share that with you today. It's an inside nugget. But when you see it, you'll see how you can actually build your platform on LinkedIn in less than 2 minutes a day. Such a powerful tool, but you'll get that in the coaching system. You're going to get a step-by-step plan for staging your recruit visits to your office because that's such an important piece. When you get in front of candidates and you cast your vision, the most powerful next step you can create is that office visit. And how you stage that a plan for how you stage that, starting the week prior to the day before, to the moment they show up into your office, to who's meeting with them, to the environment they're coming into is important. We'll work through it based off the resources that you have in your office. We'll create a step-by-step plan for staging recruiting visits. You'll get your recruiting presentation set up. I'll come alongside you. We'll set up your recruiting presentation through the 4 stages. People actually hire me to just create that for them, to come alongside them and help them understand that, because the presentation is where it all happens. If you're going to put in the time to vet talent and to actually get to talk to talent over the phone or face-to-face, if you're not presenting right, it's a dead-end street. So if right now you're going back and you're evaluating, I'm doing okay getting people on the phone, I'm doing okay getting in front of people, but I'm not really getting people the next steps, it's because of how you're presenting. I'll give you a powerful 4-stage process that will just blow your socks off. There's 2 critical components in that you do midway and at the very end that actually moves recruits to next steps, and so we'll set that up for you. I actually have a storytelling process or system. You can forever take all your stories and put it into that context. People come to me, and I actually have people that say, here's a story, help me create a more powerful story, because stories are that important. If you can develop in your career 4 to 5 key stories, then you can almost stand on stage. Like, that's the power of storytelling. and I'll help you identify those stories that you should be using to recruit. Total value in that 8-week system, you're going to get a couple of extra sessions because of the LinkedIn piece, building your platform. Is people actually pay me $3,000 to $4,000 to do that? Now, who has this worked for? Branch managers, area managers, regional managers, vice presidents. If you're a corporate recruiter, we may have one on here. I wasn't able to tell by your title. This is not for you. This is for the recruiting leader, the person who's actually leading people, managing people within a branch or under a branch structure. Let me go back through this again. You're going to get the 8-week one-on-one coaching meetings with me. We'll spend an hour each week. Sometimes if I've got the time slot, we'll go longer. My calendar on Friday afternoons is wide open for my coaching clients that if they're stuck somewhere or they have need answers to questions, they'll come in on a Friday afternoon for 15 to 30 minutes. We're going to set up your vision, your 4 pillars, right? Your 3 statements, whatever we end up with, and we're going to create anchor stories around that. We're going to set up your whiteboard CRM. We're going to help you structure your 15 minutes of recruiting each day. I'm going to show you how to build your influencer platform. We're going to get you to 5,000 connections. And then we're going to go through a step-by-step plan for staging your recruit visits to your office. And then we're going to go through and identify these key stories through a storytelling process or system. Okay. Now, with us going into the beginning of the year, I recognize that some of you are more motivated to actually move towards recruiting than at other times. And because LinkedIn is such a critical component, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give you the LinkedIn Jumpstart. Now, people pay us to come in and actually just take over their LinkedIn for 30 days to give them a LinkedIn Jumpstart. I'm not going to take over your LinkedIn, but what I am going to do is you're going to get an extra session with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to review your LinkedIn with you. I'm going to look at what you're currently doing or what you're currently not doing. There are some things on LinkedIn that you just can't miss, and they're little things. In studies, little things like having the right picture actually makes you 13 times more likely to engage with somebody. So we're going to go through your personal LinkedIn profile. We're going to give you a LinkedIn Jumpstart. I'm going to give you a tool that's going to forever and ever change the way you look at LinkedIn. I'm at almost 15,000 connections. I went from just over 3,000 to 15,000 connections using this tool, and those connections are inside the mortgage industry. I'm not talking about becoming an open networker, what they call an open networker. I'm connecting to people inside the business, okay? For the first 3 people, I'm going to give you, the first 3 people that decide to take me on the coaching, I'm going to give you the LinkedIn Jumpstart, okay? The second bonus I'm going to give you, now I do a weekly coaching video, and so over the course of the next 12 months, we'll release 52 of these. These are issues that are coming up in the market because I coach 15 to 20 people in the market at a time. These are issues and questions that are coming up that are the same things you're butting up against. We address those. Okay, some of those are going to be tactics, like here's a tactic that we find that is working right now. Some of those are just going to be taking you back to accountability. Some of those are going to be going back to the Recruiting Made Simple system process, making sure you're engaged, you're motivated in that. You're going to get 52 motivational videos from me as a bonus. Now, there are people that actually get set up as VIP clients that pay just for that, but I'm going to give that to the first 3 people as an added value. And that's well worth, that's $300 a month. If you sign up for, you're in the mortgage industry, if you sign up for a Carl White, the mortgage marketing animals, Carl's $300 a month, right? And then you're getting some of those tools and tactics. This is for recruiting leaders. There's nothing more specific. You want an advantage in your market. I know a lot of you are up against great leadership that now you're trying to build a brand or you're trying to play catch up, right? This is an incredible tool that will help you get there. So let's go back through this again. The 8-week one-on-one coaching meetings with me. We're going to set up your 4 pillars, set up your whiteboard CRM. I'm going to help you structure your recruiting day. We're going to build out your influencer platform on LinkedIn. Going to give you a step-by-step plan for staging recruit visits to your office. You know, that's we're going to give you the 4 stages of that, the storytelling process system. We're going to help you identify the key stories of your life that you should be using. And then I'm going to give you the LinkedIn Jumpstart and the 12-month coaching with the Recruiting Made System weekly coaching model. All said, it's a little over $8,500 in value. Now, I want to pause for a moment. If all this did was force you to write out your vision and give you a clear vision for the future, what I can tell you is that it would be worth it. And here's why, is because most people walk through their life in this business. 99% plus of the people in this business are stewards of vision, not owners of vision. When I say stewards, most people take on the corporate vision. And because of that, the corporate vision is not theirs. It's not their vision. They don't have ownership of it. Owners of vision are visioneers. If you want to become a successful recruiting leader in this business, you have to move to visioneer. Okay, so stewardship versus ownership. Ownership, I can tell you, if you owned a vision and it was yours and you were passionate about it, right, this would be worth it just for that alone. If this gave you a kick in the butt to finally get you focused on recruiting, would it be worth it? It would. If this webinar gives you a kick in the butt and you go out and you hire 2 to 3 new loan officers, great, that's what I'm about. The free content will help you do that. Okay? What if your own recruiting model, your own recruiting system, forever and ever, amen, gave you 2 to 3 new loan officers that you wouldn't have hired otherwise? Would it be worth it? It would. 5 years from now, you'd have 10 to 15 new loan officers that you would not have gotten. So let's ask the question, what's a new loan officer worth to you? One loan officer, you're all in different models. Some of you are running P&L type models, hybrid models. Some of you are in retail, full retail. You're receiving overrides, and your override may depend on your entire structure. What's an 18 million? That's a middle of the road producer. What's an 18 to 20 million dollar producer worth to you? 5,000, 10,000, 20,000? May depend on their product mix, right? More. How much would you pay to get one loan officer per quarter? How much would you pay to get one loan officer per month? Right? This is what a recruiting system can actually do for you. So you can see why people would actually pay us over $8,000 to set this up for them. And companies actually have me come in and build recruiting models for them. This is for the individual recruiting leader. You can see why it would be a good deal at $8,500. Typically in this, I would charge right at $3,000 for the general public. What I want to do for the group of people that are on here today is I'm going to offer this to you, the 8-week coaching system for $997. If you want to sign up for that, you go to the website there, recruitingissimple.com. Make sure that's the website you originally went to register. Add a / on that and the word go. And that's going to take you to a place where you can register for that. You'll get it for $997 today. You'll get all the stuff that goes with it. Now, I realize you have 2 choices. Your first option, do nothing, not take a leap of faith, and that's 100% risk-free. The second option here is you can pony up a small investment compared to the value you're going to get in return and give it a shot. But here's what I'm willing to do for you. If you choose the second option and it works great for you, great. I guarantee it will work great for you. That's the other part of that. If it doesn't work for you, simply ask me for your money back and you'll get it. And the reason why is because when the price tag of $8,500, this is absolutely worth it. Like, there's nothing else in this business that comes alongside a recruiting leader in the mortgage business that comes alongside a recruiting leader. There's some recruiting tactics training out there, and I've seen it, right? There's nothing that builds an entire system for a recruiting leader, right? If you get through the 8 weeks, it ends up being an extra 2 sessions because of the bonuses that I'm giving to you. If you get through that and you're not happy, you're not content with it, ask for your money back and I'll give it to you. So this is what I call investing in the future you. Let me just rewind myself. I'll go back to 2002 when I got in this business and fast forward to 2007. In 2007, I had to recreate myself in this business. We all know what happened in 2007, 2008. I had to recreate myself as a producing branch manager that was managing multiple branches, had to recreate myself. If I would have had a plan like this in 2008, I would have been able to dominate. But what I did was from 2007 to basically 2013, which is 6 years, I had to figure this out the hard way, one hard knock at a time, right? If at the time I had been offered this opportunity, I would have been all over investing in the future me. So when I go back to 2007, 2008, and I just say, if I'd had this opportunity to invest in me, where could I have fast forwarded myself over that window of time? What I know is that I would have accelerated my growth, and the future me would have been very thankful for the 2007, 2008 me for investing in it. So here's the truth. If you paid a recruiter to hire a single loan officer, you'd pay about $7,500. Okay, so let's just take some simple math. The average recruiter makes 6 basis points on first year production. So I went fast on that. Let's do that again. The average recruiter makes 6 basis points on their first year production of a loan officer. So if you have a $12 million producing loan officer, 6 basis points is $7,200. So the $7,500 is very realistic. That would, for a single hire, a recruiter would actually make $7,200. Okay, you can multiply the investment into yourself, your branch, your P&L with just even one hire by 7. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Go through this one more time. Here's what you get. You're going to get the weekly one-on-one coaching meetings with me. We're going to go through, we're going to set up your pillars, your vision with these anchor stories. That's going to be your vision. We're going to set up the whiteboard CRM with next steps. So you'll have a complete system built into the CRM when we're done. Going to help you structure your 15 minutes of recruiting each day so that you have a way to look at the beginning of every week and know what the activities, what the behaviors need to be. We're going to build out your influencer platform on LinkedIn to 5,000 connections. We're going to create a step-by-step plan for staging recruits to visit your office. You're going to get the complete setup for the recruiting presentation, the 4 stages. You're going to understand a storytelling process or system that will help identify the key stories of your life, and we'll make sure we have those for you. Then the LinkedIn Jumpstart, and then the weekly coaching you'll get for 12 months through the Recruiting Made Simple system. Total value, $8,588 for $997 today. So I'm going to leave this up for a few minutes. This is really in the webinar here. I'll leave this up for you for a few minutes. You can sign up by going to the recruitingissimple.com/go. Now, one extra step there. Once you've done that, you will actually go to my calendar and you will set up the time, the weekly time. So my coaching calls, how I keep my sanity is I keep those on specific days of the week. We book in the hours on those, so we'll go a full hour each time. And you'll get access to my calendar through a website I'm going to give you here right now, so be prepared for that. It's an easy one to remember. But you'll go to that calendar, you'll select what option works for you, and then that will be a reoccurring meeting that we'll go back to for 8 weeks. Okay? So you will be able to go to that calendar here. Just go to, it's just www.book, B-O-O-K, Richard, which is my name, R-I-C-H-A-R-D, now, the word now, so 3 words, bookrichardnow.com, and that's my calendar. And on that calendar, you can schedule what time slot works best for you. And so first come, first serve on that. So you'll go to the recruitingissimple.com/go. You'll register there. You'll schedule our first meeting. We can start as soon as tomorrow if there's time available on that calendar. Or most of you will probably want to get started next week. That's okay. If you still have questions, you can actually call I've got a secure voicemail line set up. The number's there for you to call that. You can leave a detailed message, and we'll return your call within 15 minutes. So lots of content here. Hope there's a lot of value here for you today. Regardless of whether you sign up or not, follow me on LinkedIn. I am constantly coming back to recruiting leaders and trying to bring value. You can see the nuggets of information that I leave on through there on LinkedIn. From time to time, I write a pretty incredible article centered around process and systems. You can go back through some of those if you want to on LinkedIn. There's some value there as well. But ultimately, it's my vision, my passion to help those of you that sit in these roles of recruiting leaders to become more successful. So hopeful that this brought you some value, and look forward to just ongoing relationships with a lot of you. Man, have a phenomenal new year. I'm going to leave this page up for a couple of minutes, but this is Richard Milligan, and I'm signing off. Thanks so much for attending the webinar.